Once known as a fruitful place is now a cemetery. What's your understanding of a curse? What comes to your mind when the word curse is mentioned? Is it a myth or is it a real unexplainable thing? While some may argue that a curse is false and made in an imagination to scare, others believe that this thing is serious and something not to mess with. They say that curses can be activated by people who are close to the spiritual world. The witches, wizards, and voodoo priestess and priests. Name them all. In today's video, we will take you on an intriguing, gloomy journey of Julia Brown, the woman who cursed and annihilated her own town. So what did the people of the town do? What really happened, and did they deserve it? Let's find out. Julia Brown was born on January 1845 in Louisiana. She was sometimes called Julia Black or Julia White. Other stories claimed her maiden name was Bernard. Little information is available about her early life, as the story has primarily been passed down through oral communication from generation to generation. However, many sources stated that Julia Brown was a voodoo priestess who lived and worked in her early life in New Orleans in 1860. Julia Brown used her abilities to heal patients. Back in the 19th century, there were many healers in Louisiana. This included healers belonging to the French-speaking tribe and voodoos. The treatment used by this type of people included prayers, medical remedies, and laying hands on patients. These people were essential in Louisiana because of the lack of doctors and physicians. So healers like this took their place in attending to people. It is said that this type of person would perform treatments if asked. As Julia got older, her voodoo abilities got much stronger. Some even claimed she was a priestess or queen. Julia did this before picking up and moving to the village of Freener in 1860 in the midst of the Manchac group. The history of the town of Freener comes around 1836 when a German immigrant named Martin Schlossler established a small community in the Manchac Swamp, located just north of New Orleans on the western edge of Lake Pontchartrain. Manchac Swamp became vulnerable to vicious storms and hurricanes. This was because of the devastating erosion that took place in Louisiana's wetlands. Originally, the town was named Schlossler for its founder. However, the settler began to develop the area and it was given a new name, Freener. Freener was named after the Attorney General of Louisiana, who was named Nicholas Chauvin Lafreniere. Decades after the town was founded, the population boasted around 25 families, which included German immigrants or families of German heritage. The town was a logging community until 1849, when Adam, Martin's brother, introduced the idea of farming for profits. The nutritious land allowed to grow crops such as cabbages to thrive, and soon enough the community became known for its crops. In 1854, the Freener station of the Illinois Central Railroad was built. This helped to reach the town, which could be reached by means of boat travel. This helped the community of Freener. The railroad was the town's lifeline, bringing in groceries from New Orleans. The community by then did not have a doctor, and they had two options: travel to find a doctor, or sort out the help from Julia Brown. The town sorted out after Julia to be their local healer. Julia Brown would use her voodoo in a way that she could heal. Julia was glad to be their healer and midwife. She would use herbs and anything useful at her disposal to treat her patients. She would seek out knowledge and materials to help her care for the people. Julia would travel the village to perform rituals to help with childbirth, fight infections, and cure illnesses. The infected and sick always recovered instantly. The community knew what magic Julia used did not only work, but was a powerful one. So how was this community cursed? The people began to take Julia for granted. It is not that the community didn't respect her. The community loved her. So how did people take Julia for granted? The community began demanding or expecting her help without even asking. They began to assume that Julia would be there for them and would help them take care of them, which she was until she wasn't getting the respect she deserved. She began to scare the community with a prediction that something tragic will happen to them. The town was terrified and didn't know what to do. We are unsure whether she placed a curse or forecast it. Regardless of that, Julia always knew something bad was coming to Freener. On September 28, 1915, Julia made her final and most terrifying prediction to date. This began with her singing these words, "One day I'm going to die, and I'm going to take you all with me." She sang it over and over again. An oral history account from a longtime area resident, Helen Berg, says Aunt Julia Brown always sat on her front porch and played her guitar and sang songs that she would make up. The words to one of the songs she sang said that one day she would die and everything would die with her. As the tale goes, In the months leading to her death, locals would frequently hear Julia Brown sing "One Day I'm Gonna Die and Take the Whole Town With Me." However, in 1872, her actual words of Julia Brown were, "Oh, when I die, I'll take half of Frina with me." Unfortunately, Julia died at around the age of 70. The townspeople were worried and desperate, knowing Julia's other prediction came true. Since she was beloved, those who lived in New Orleans came to her burial to mourn. The community all gathered at her funeral, hoping that the show of attention and respect would put her soul to rest. Some went out of guilt for how they treated her. However, this did not happen and their plan failed to work. As nails were hammered into the coffin, a sudden and unusual, devastating hurricane ripped through the village. Those in Frena had no idea that a hurricane would hit them since the town there had no newspaper to warn them. In the town of Ruddock, the train passed on the morning of the 29th of September and threw off a newspaper that stated a hurricane was coming. Despite this warning, it made no difference. The harsh storm had a wind of 120 miles an hour, and the storm surge made the water level in the area rise to 13 feet. Sadly, in Freener, the locals had less time to get to safety. Some managed to make it to higher ground, but suddenly there was a collapse killing 25 people. Many faced an even worse fate, drowning in the Manchac Swamp. However, some families were lucky to board the train, which was headed for New Orleans, but were forced to stop because the track was covered in debris. The storm devastated many communities in Louisiana as it swept through the state. Many people lost their lives. The hurricane took the lives of over 350 people. The locals still claim to find skeletons surface, only to drift down into the swamp. While others blamed Julia for the fallen lives, others defended Julia. They said that Julia was a beloved local healer. They further said that Julia wouldn't have acted with malice intent, suggesting that Julia's Song of Doom was actually a warning song to warn her people. They said that she would even try to perform anti-storm rituals, but all failed. Well, in our view, they do make a point. Sadly, on October 1st, Frena, Ruddock, and Napton had been entirely destroyed. Homes were flattened, buildings demolished, and miles of railway tracks washed away. The storm wiped out the town of Freda and Ruddock. One of the lucky survivors recounted his experience from New Orleans, having left the Manchac Swamp during the storm. This was the survivor's words. "The wash was washing in the front door. We thought we were all gone. All the camps down there gone. On the big lake, they had the big timber, big cypress timber. It was just like a giant boar went along there. I'll bet that storm blew even bit 120 or 30 miles an hour. You could hear it across the South Pass when it hits our place just like a freight train." Despite efforts by developers to rebuild Freener, the only thing that remains on the island was a mass grave where people were buried. As a result, rumors spread that the island had a huge active paranormal hotspot. Rather than being the Voodoo Priestess, Julia had a life as well. In 1880, it is said that she married a man called Celestin Brown. No one knows about Julia's husband, except that he worked as a laborer in Frena. It was said that many liked her. However, how she lived looked like people pretty much avoided her. Supposedly, she lived on the edge of the swamp away from the village. Furthermore, rumors suggested that Julia would perform dark magic. In 1900, Julia's husband was given land by the government in the 1900s. In total, they owned 40 acres, which were used for farming. Sadly, in 1914, her husband passed on. This led Julia to distance herself from the community. It wasn't sure if the two had children together. Julia inherited the land from her husband. As a black woman, it is unknown if Julia Brown was born free or enslaved. Most of what can be confirmed about her came across from 3 census records, the earliest dating back to 1880 when she was 35 years old. The records show that Julia did not have formal education and explicitly stated that she could not read or write. Thank you for watching the video. That is all you need to know about today's story. What was the most surprising thing about this? Was Julia's song a curse or a warning? Let us know in the comments section. Remember to hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe on your way out.